ODD TV. ODD TV.
The most effective way to protect yourself from subconscious manipulation is by being aware of how it works. What the conscious mind believes, the subconscious acts on. It works like programming a computer. Information is fed into a computer, and the computer acts on it. However, if the information fed into the computer is wrong, it still acts on it. If a person believes something that is not true, the memory banks of the subconscious mind do not correct the error, but act on it. The theory of cognitive dissonance holds that the mind automatically and involuntarily rejects information not in line with previously accepted thoughts and beliefs. Watching television often produces an altered state of consciousness. Though not consciously perceived, the television screen, while appearing static, actually flickers. Any repeating light or sound pattern can lead you into an altered state. A hypnotist uses patterned speech by varying the pacing and inflection of his voice to induce this state of mind in his subject. It is in this state of mind where one is the most receptive to mental programming. Whether or not the information takes hold in the mind depends on two factors: trust in the source of the information and repetition of the message. Trust in the source of the information induces acceptance of the message as true, even if it is not understood. Repetition of the message embeds it in the subconscious so that acceptance of its truth and accuracy becomes a conditioned response. Thus, this information will be accepted as true without thinking about it whenever it is presented again.
We're going to start by playing the national anthem, which was the sign-off on television stations across the nation back in the 1960s.
Our national anthem.
Happens so quickly you can barely see it, but you aren't meant to physically, literally see it. You are meant to subconsciously see it. It is meant to go into the subconscious and implant itself into your brain on a subconscious level, and this continues throughout this entire national anthem. Back in the 60s, scientists One scientist in particular that I cite, who worked for General Electric, was able to do experiments on people watching television, and he found that within 30 seconds to a minute of watching television, your brain goes from a beta wave state, which is an alert, awake, thinking state, which primarily uses the left side of your brain, which is where your critical thinking skills lie, to an alpha state, which is more of a relaxed, daydreaming type state, where you essentially go on autopilot and you become a passive learner to the information that's coming into your mind. Okay? What they were able to figure out is that television is a form of basic mind control. When you are in an alpha wave state, you are suggestible to whatever's going into your mind, what you're seeing, at a subliminal level that you cannot critically analyze as you are viewing it. And one of this researcher's findings actually said that through this, there may be a time when the mass media can create special programs that help people modify attitudes and behaviors. It's creepy stuff.
World Trade Center bombing, remember? During the trial, one of the bombers claimed the CIA had advanced knowledge. The diplomat who issued the terrorist visa was CIA. It's not unthinkable they paved the way for bombing purely to justify a budget increase.
You're telling me that you're gonna fake some terrorist thing just to scare some money out of Congress?
Well, unfortunately, Mr. Hennessy, I have no idea how to fake killing 4,000 people. So we're just gonna have to do it for real. Oh, blame it on the Muslims, naturally. Then I get my funding.
The flicker rate on the television is very, very important. It was timed to be so many cycles per second, and it actually just meets with the brain patterns for an alpha state. When our brain sees it through our eyes, we start to adopt that flicker rate in our mind, and we go into a deep alpha state. Watch children and watch their mouths. They drop open. They won't hear their parents talking. They're hypnotized, in fact. Why would they give that particular flicker rate when they could have chosen of a whole variety of flicker rates? It wasn't an essential thing to have. So it was done for a purpose. It was meant to be hypnotic. It was meant to be used as a tool of propaganda and indoctrination, even through the guise of entertainment and so on. It also was to create a new society because they were the avant-garde, as I say, leading the sexual revolution through drama, through little documentaries, fiction, non-fiction, all combines. Once again, back to Plato, the audience see what they see. You understand that it's even worked out towards different age groups. There's something on for everybody's age group. Each age group is actually being updated as well, even the elderly ones, into new ways of thinking or seeing things. But the target mainly was for youngsters. If we take one of the world's experts on propaganda, who is Jacques Ellul, who wrote extensively on how the mind works and how all entertainment, he said, that has to do with government programs such as police, detective stories, detective series, which contain little human dramas as the hook that you identify with, to make you watch the whole story. Child gets kidnapped, detective goes on a hunt, he goes through hell and fire to get that child back. You identify with the hero if you're a male, you identify with the heroine if you're female. And that's the hook to get you to watch them. But what he said was, all dramas to do with police, or even the military in movies, are pure propaganda. Pure propaganda. The human story is just the bait to make you watch through it, to get you to identify with it. Because once again, there's always a message left somewhere in the movie. It might even be a message that's against your own morality. It could be where the cop, for instance, does sleep with this beautiful woman while his wife was at home, and it's all part of the story, and even tell you why he did this. He was feeling down that day, blah, blah, blah. And so you've just again altered your viewpoints on how you yourself might behave in that situation. And it's sometimes that kind of thing can be justified. That's how you're downloaded through entertainment. It's there to alter and direct and always upgrade into another step of the direction that the entire culture for someone else's purpose. Let's talk about the effects of the alpha state first of all. Recent articles I've even read on the air from various science studies show you that even when you switch off television, you remain in that alpha state for maybe 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes longer, depending how long you've been watching it. With high definition, again, why would a president of a country mandate that all TVs had to go high definition? Is it because he really cares so much about your happiness? And he wants better quality for you? Or is there another reason for it? Well, I'm sure the effects of the old flicker rates and what it did will also be incorporated in high definition, but with even more added benefits for bringing you into a complete hypnotic state. How do you wake someone up who's addicted to television? You can't. Very, very simple. You can't get your daily brainwashing where literally it's bypassing any consciousness in the person. You can't take that every day and still try to wake up and learn at the same time. I've known people who've gone through complete withdrawal from television and gone into depressions because their entire routine is broken. They also have time on their hands, which is a big aspect of control, remember too. If you can take time away from a person who can think for themselves, who might say, oh, I'll go and read a book, I'll go and study something, or if you can take that time away from them and have them mesmerized in front of a television set, then you'll keep them dumb, stupid, compliant, and going along with the system. I always advise to people, if you know someone who's watching TV, it's quite simple to find out where they are mentally, psychologically, in the understanding of things. You can ask them a few simple questions. If they give you standard television answers, forget it. Simple as that, forget it. If you see some spark of their own opinion coming in, there's maybe a chance you can do something with them. But you cannot get off. You see, television, it can be classified as a drug.
People think that hypnosis is some mysterious, esoteric thing, and it's not. It's just simply a mental transaction in which a person has focused their attention. They've stopped being critical, and they're more open to suggestion.
And here's a team of junior spacemen with an out-of-this-world breakfast.
Comparing the marketing of yesteryear to the marketing of today is like comparing a BB gun to a smart bomb. It's not the same as when I was a kid, or even when the people who are young adults today were kids. It's much more sophisticated and it's much more pervasive. It's not that products themselves are bad or good. It's the notion of manipulating children into buying the products. In 1998, Western International Media, Century City, and Lieberman Research Worldwide conducted a study on nagging.
We asked parents to keep a diary for 3 weeks and to record every time, you could imagine, every time their child nagged them for a product. We asked them to record when, where, and why.
This study was not to help parents cope with nagging. It was to help corporations help children nag for their products more effectively.
Anywhere from 20% to 40% of purchases would not have occurred unless the child had nagged their parents. That is, we found, for example, a quarter of all visits to theme parks wouldn't have occurred unless a child nagged the parents. 4 out of 10 visits to places like Chuck E. Cheese would not have occurred. And any parent would understand that. You know, when I think of Chuck E. Cheese, oh my goodness, it's noise. And there's so many kids. Why would I want to spend 2 hours there? But if the child nags enough, you're going to go. We saw the same thing with movies, with home video, with fast food. We do have to break through this barrier where they do tell us, or they say they don't like it when their kids nag. Well, that's just a general attitude that they possess. It doesn't mean that they necessarily act upon it 100% of the time. You can manipulate consumers into wanting and therefore buying your products. It's a game.
Children are not little adults. Their minds aren't developed. And what's happening is that marketers are playing to their developmental vulnerabilities. The advertising that children are exposed to today is honed by psychologists. It's enhanced by media technology that nobody ever thought was possible.
The more insight you have about the consumer, the more creative you'll be in your communication strategies. So if that takes a psychologist, yeah, we want one of those on staff.
I'm not saying that it's wrong to make things for children. You know, and I also think it's important to distinguish between psychologists who work on products for children, who help toy corporations make toys that are developmentally appropriate. I think that's great. That's different from selling the toys directly to the children.
Initiative is huge. I think in the U.S. we place about $12 billion of media time. So we'll put it on TV, we'll put it in print, we'll put it out in outdoor, we'll buy radio time. So we're the biggest buyers of advertising time and space in the U.S. and in the world.
One family cannot combat an industry that spends $12 billion a year trying to get their children. They can't do it.
They are tomorrow's adult consumers, so start talking with them now, build that relationship when they're younger, and you've got them as an adult. Somebody asked me, Lucy, is that ethical? You're essentially manipulating these children. Well, yeah, is it ethical? I don't know. But our role at Initiative is to move products. And if we know you move products with a certain creative execution, placed in a certain type of media vehicle, then we've done our job.
Every institution provides the people who are members of it with a social role to occupy. And typically, institutions that are vibrant and have a lot of power will specify that role in some sense as a list of virtues. It's true for churches, for schools, for any institution that has power over people and shapes them.
One nation.
The corporation, likewise, it provides us with a list of virtues, a kind of social role, which is the good consumer.
Most would say that the idea of using actors to trick the public for political purposes is preposterous. But then again, most people are unaware of a declassified CIA program called Operation Mockingbird, which is solid, undeniable proof that our government is very much interested in using the media for trickery and deception.
For about 10 minutes or so. Did they ask you any questions, or what happened for you to be standing here with me now?
They looked in my backpack. They frisked me a couple times. I don't have my ID, so I couldn't, or my ticket or anything, but I just told them, I guess they saw that I didn't have any weapons or didn't have any evidence of doing any of this stuff.
Nick alone?
I guess they just screamed right into the side of the Twin Tower, exploding through the other side. And then I witnessed both towers collapse, one first and then the second, mostly due to structural failure because the fire was just too intense. Obviously,
there were a lot of people inside the buildings at the time.
From the 7th precinct, the 1st precinct.
former classmate, Alex Israel. Alex Israel, thank you for joining me. You knew this character. Is this something that you could have ever predicted, that he would one day flip and do something as monstrous as this?
I mean, I don't know if you can ever predict something like that would happen. You really never think that it's going to happen to your school, somewhere where you live and you've lived your whole life.
And I remember I was up that morning, and somehow I got a Skype alert, and so I opened my computer and it was Jim. And he was just talking to me, and I told him Happy Thanksgiving.
But I don't know if I could have predicted it. I mean, there was something off about him. I really only knew him closely when we were very, very young.
And he's like, "It's Thanksgiving over there?" And I said, "Yes, it's Thanksgiving. I just want to know, you know, we all love you." And then I went off to work, and obviously we know the rest of the story. But
when we were in elementary school together. And I mean, he was always a little bit different. He mostly stuck to himself, but I don't know if you can say that you could have predicted this.
So I feel very honored, and you know, it's really special that I was at least able to say that.
I was never in any of his classes or anything like that, but yeah, you could definitely tell that he was, I would say, a genius. Yeah, there was definitely something there that was a little bit above the rest of us.
I thought that it was a matter of real concern that planted stories intended to serve a national purpose abroad came home and were circulated here and believed here, because this would mean that the CIA could manipulate the news in the United States by channeling it through some foreign country. Now, we're looking at that very carefully.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
In 1948, there was a law passed so that our government couldn't use propaganda against its own citizens. In May 2012, 7 months before Sandy Hook, a Texan Republican introduced an act called H.R. 5736, Smith Modernization Act of 2012, which was an amendment to the 1948 bill, making it legal for the government to disseminate their own propaganda in America using the press, publications, the radio, motion picture films, the internet, and social media, while also giving themselves the power to put any propaganda they want directly into their archives, no questions asked. Which means their lies and time will officially become history. We all know we've been already receiving propaganda through film and the mainstream media for decades, so you have to wonder what level they intend on taking it with this bill. This bill died in the Senate, but was brought up again as an amendment in the 2012 NDAA, found on pages 326 to 328. As stated on maxkaiser.com, it is the same exact bill except one word is left out. The article goes on to mention that Section B expressly allows the use of propaganda domestically as long as there is some possibility that at least one non-U.S. citizen will eventually receive the given communication.
shopping for this holiday season. It's okay. You can admit it if you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
Well, it's okay. You can admit it if you have bought an item or 2 or maybe 10 for yourself. It's okay. You can admit it. You bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
It's okay. You can admit it if you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
It's okay. You can admit it if you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself. It's okay. You can admit it if you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
It's okay. You can admit it, Todd. If you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
It's okay. You can admit it if you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself. It's okay. You can admit it if you bought an item or 2 or maybe 10 for yourself. It's okay. You can admit it if you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
It's okay. You can admit it if you bought 1 or 2 or maybe 3 or 4, maybe even 10 items for yourself. It's okay. You can admit it if you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
It's okay. You can admit it if you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
It's okay. You can admit it if you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
It's okay. You can admit it if you bought an item or 2 or maybe 10 for yourself.
It's okay. You can admit it if you bought maybe an item 2 or 10 for yourself. Is it okay? You can admit it if you bought an item or 2 or 3 or 10 for yourself. It's okay. You can admit it if you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
It's okay. You can admit it if you bought an item or 2 or 10 for you.
It's okay. You can admit it.
If you bought an item or 2 for yourself.
It's okay. You can admit it if you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself. It's okay. You can admit it if you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself. It's okay. Admit it if you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
It's okay. You can admit it if you bought yourself 1 or 2 or 10 things for yourself because a lot of people do it.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year. Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year. Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year. Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year. Economic factors may take some of the spring out of the...
Third time I've said that. I'll probably say it 3 more times. See, in my line of work, you got to keep repeating things over and over and over again for the truth to sink in, to kind of catapult the propaganda.
Terrorism, terrorist, terror organization, terrorist attacks, terrorism, terrorist network, terrorist attacks, terrorist group, terrorists, terrorists, instruments of terror, a terror network, terror cells, terrorists, terrorizing terror and murder. They kind of catapult the propaganda. Weapons of terror, terrible weapons of mass destruction, chemical weapons of mass destruction, dangerous weapons, even more dangerous weapons, biological weapons, chemical agents, chemical weapons, chemical attacks, chemical and biological weapons, ballistic missiles, chemical or biological weapons, chemical or biological attack, chemical and biological attacks, poisons, deadly gases, the biological or chemical weapon, instruments of terror, the instruments of mass death, weapons of mass destruction, nuclear weapon, bomb, nuclear weapons, nuclear program, nuclear weapons program, nuclear scientists, nuclear holy warriors, nuclear program, nuclear weapons, nuclear weapon, nuclear technology, biological or chemical or a nuclear weapon. They kind of catapult the propaganda.
But here you have the Johnny Appleseed of terrorism wandering the country with his little sack of anthrax. Anthrax. Bacterium, anthrax investigation, anthrax exposure, anthrax tests with anthrax scares, anthrax spores, anthrax strains, anthrax hoaxes, anthrax attacks, cases of anthrax cases and traces of anthrax, skin anthrax, cutaneous case of anthrax, inhaled anthrax, inhalation anthrax, anthrax in the mail, anthrax through the mail, anthrax tainted letters, anthrax laced letters, anthrax letters, presence of anthrax, no presence of anthrax, positive for anthrax, negative for anthrax, positive for anthrax, also has anthrax, but not anthrax. I don't have anthrax. He does not have anthrax. No anthrax. Crop-dusted Omaha with anthrax. Mass spreading of mutant anthrax, deadly anthrax. Cure any anthrax. Anthrax-fighting drug, antibiotics. Antibiotics. Anthrax vaccine. Smallpox vaccine. That's right, he said smallpox. Smallpox vaccine. That's right, he said smallpox. Back to anthrax. Cure for anthrax. Die from 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 anthrax.
For the next few minutes, I'm going to give you the facts on Ebola. It'll take just 3 minutes.
Ebola.
As you know, this Ebola strain has been much more virulent.
Ebola strain. Ebola strains. Ebola strains.
The Ebola strain.
Ebola strain.
Ebola strain.
What causes Ebola?
Growing Ebola fear spreads around the country.
There are fears the outbreak will continue to spread.
Americans panic over a possible Ebola outbreak.
Fear and panic over a possible Ebola outbreak. Ebola outbreak. Growing fears about Ebola.
Tested for Ebola.
Tested for Ebola.
Tested for Ebola.
Tested for Ebola. Is there any cure for Ebola?
ZMapp.
So the drug that many people have read about in the media is something called ZMapp.
ZMapp. ZMapp.
ZMapp.
This used to be an orphan drug. What companies now actually see the potential for profit in developing an Ebola therapy?
ZMapp.
ZMapp.
ZMapp. ZMapp.
ZMapp.
ZMapp.
They are covering the man in a completely airtight containment unit. Smallpox scare.
That's right, he said smallpox.
6 vials of deadly smallpox.
That's right, he said smallpox.
You're probably dead.
Because somebody might weaponize Ebola.
If I were a bioterrorist and I had a chance to weaponize 5, 6, or 7, I would not pick Ebola.
A country that actually weaponized Ebola.
Is there any cure for Ebola?
Monday, the first of 39 healthy volunteers began getting the experimental Ebola vaccine.
The first ever human trials of an Ebola vaccine.
An Ebola vaccine.
Ebola vaccine.
Forget the conspiracy. Listen to our government agencies. These guys are telling the truth. You know, there's no conspiracy here, folks. Just get your damn vaccine.
Cure for Ebola.
Die from Ebola.
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 By midnight tonight, more than 1,700 television stations around the country, including WNBC, will have completed a historic change that was years in the making, the transition from analog to digital broadcast.
Starts at 4 today, right after Oprah.
Symbols are used by Masonic lodges, witch covens, Satanists, and alchemists to directly access parts of the brain which respond to strong shapes and colors. Just as the saying goes, a picture paints 1,000 words, so magical symbols can be used to convey a multi-layered message or command. The use of symbols to convey the desire or will of the magician is generally referred to as sigil magic.
CBS 11 News at 10 starts right now.
Live from Fort Worth, Dallas, and all of North Texas, with coverage you can count on, this is CBS 11 News at 10.
CBS 11 News at 10 starts right now.
Texas, with coverage you can count on. CBS 11 News at 10.
Starting right now on ABC's This Week. Out of control, the Ebola outbreak spreading fast. And now, the race to save 2 Americans stricken with a killer virus. This morning, breaking details on the emergency mission to bring the first patient home. From ABC News, This Week with George Stephanopoulos begins now.
Good morning. It's an image sparking hope and fear for so many Americans. Christian missionary and Ebola patient Dr. Kent Brantley back in the U.S.
It's Friday, and that means it's not top 10 time.
That's why you can't. That's why you can't. That's why you can't.
Here again, this shape, this arch with this 90 degree. I know this shot is a little blurry right here because it's just sort of a transition screen. And again, these are just, and understand, these are highly technical. Look at how detailed all of this is just for a fraction of a second of time, which means this is being targeted towards your subconscious mind on purpose. Because these folks that are making these things know that your conscious mind does not perceive these things at this frame rate. You cannot even pick up on it consciously, which is the whole point. So I'll continue to go slowly forward, and we'll notice certain shapes again. This interlocking pattern will be visible over and over and over again to you in different mnemonic circles, sequences, on different channels on TV, in different programs that you're being programmed with. And so here we go. Here's another spinning mnemonic that comes right out of the center of that one, and everything spins in here. Going to kind of just go through this now until we come to some more parts. And again, there's the count up. So as this thing starts off, it's a count up. So watch, it shows you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's a count up, okay? And then the next process is a count down. And what they do, and all of this is well documented, and if you research mind control and hypnosis and hypnotic techniques, it's well documented that if you want to put somebody in a very, very deep trance, one way to do it is to bring them up and down, in and out of hypnotic states.
Police say it's a sheer miracle that no one was killed by the car bomb in County Down.
This is a Fox News alert.
Good afternoon, I'm Stacey Scheibel, and this is First at 4. We begin with news from Pinellas County, where yet another child has been left in a car.
Live from the financial capital of the world, the New York Stock Exchange. This is Squawk on the Street. Let's go around the horn. Good morning, everybody. I'm Mark Haynes. More sour economic news, pushing the futures significantly lower. The morning after stocks hit a 5.5-year low.
Live from the CBS Broadcast Center in New York City, this is CBS 2 News at 11.
Blown out of the sky. Blown out of the sky, a fireball and smoke after a passenger plane is shot down over Ukraine. And tonight, the world wants to know who's behind the attack.
Racist remarks believed to be made by Clippers owner Donald Sterling. Plain and simple. When you heard those comments, Magic, what was your reaction?
Well, Sage, I was really upset. You know, you can't understand how hurt I was, and also I was hurt for all African Americans and all minorities.
You want to block President Obama from taking more executive actions to allow some of the illegals already in this country to stay here. You want to do that before moving to deal with the new crisis of kids coming from Central America. Why?
Well, what I want to do is solve the crisis.
On this immediate crisis.
I don't want to block action. What I want
on this immediate crisis.
I don't want to block.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached a historic crossroads. The globalists are collapsing our republic right now in front of our very eyes. They are destroying national sovereignty to bring us into the North American Union. Crony capitalists that have created the planetary corporate system that we know